Interview 1.
Welcome to Game Culture, where we explore the evolution of popular hobbies. Today, we're discussing the history of board games with Mr. Allen, a game historian. Mr. Allen, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Board games have such a long and interesting history.
Absolutely. Board games are enjoyed by millions of people today. Can you give us an overview of their origins?
Sure, the earliest board games date back thousands of years. One of the oldest known games is Senet, which was played in ancient Egypt around 3100 BCE. The game involved moving pieces across a grid, and it was not only a form of entertainment, but also had religious significance. Other ancient games include Go, from China, which is still popular today, and the royal game of Or from Mesopotamia. These early games helped lay the foundation for the wide variety of board games we see today.
That's fascinating. How did board games evolve in modern times?
During the 19th and 20th centuries, many of the board games we recognize today were invented. For example, Monopoly was created in the early 1900s and became one of the best-selling games in the world. The modern board game industry really took off in the 1970s and 1980s with the rise of strategy games like Risk and Dungeons and Dragons. Since then, we've seen an explosion of new and innovative games, especially with the rise of Eurogames, which emphasize strategy over luck. Since then, we've seen an explosion of new and innovative games, especially with the rise of Eurogames, which emphasize strategy over luck.
What makes board games continue to be popular in today's digital age?
I believe the social aspect is key. Board games bring people together in a way that's different from digital games. They require face-to-face interaction, collaboration, and sometimes friendly competition. Plus, there's something very tactile and satisfying about moving pieces around a board or rolling dice, which you don't get with digital games.
Interview 2.
Welcome to Culinary Conversations. Today, we're talking about the art of bread making with Ms. Emma, a professional baker. Ms. Emma, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite subjects, bread.
Bread is such a common food, but there's a lot of skill involved in making it. Can you explain the basics of bread making?
Absolutely. At its core, bread is made from just a few ingredients: flour, water, yeast, and salt. The key to making good bread is understanding how these ingredients work together. Yeast, for example, is what makes the bread rise by producing carbon dioxide during fermentation. The flour provides the structure and the water helps form the dough. Salt adds flavor and helps control the fermentation process. The baker's job is to balance all these elements to create a loaf that's light, flavorful, and has a good crust.
That sounds simple, but I'm sure there's more to it than that.
Definitely, the technique is very important. For example, kneading the dough helps develop gluten, which gives bread its chewy texture. The timing of fermentation is also critical. If you let the dough ferment for too long, it can collapse, but if you don't give it enough time, the bread will be dense. Temperature also plays a role. Some breads require a long, slow fermentation at a cooler temperature, while others can be baked more quickly.
What do you think is driving the recent resurgence of interest in home bread making?
I think people are looking for ways to slow down and enjoy more hands-on, creative activities. There's something very rewarding about making your own bread from scratch. Plus, with so many different types of bread, sourdough, whole grain, rye, there's always something new to try. It's a skill that can be both relaxing and delicious. Interview 3.
Welcome to Mind Matters. Today, we are discussing the science of memory with Dr. Laura, a cognitive psychologist. Dr. Laura, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Memory is such an important part of our lives, but many people don't fully understand how it works. Can you give us a brief overview of the science behind memory?
Certainly, memory is a complex process that involves different parts of the brain. There are 3 main stages of memory: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is when we first take in information. This can be through what we see, hear, or experience. Then, the brain processes that information and stores it for later use. Finally, retrieval is the process of accessing that stored information when we need it. However, not all memories are stored equally. Some fade over time, while others, especially those tied to strong emotions, can last a lifetime.
That's fascinating. What are some common misconceptions people have about memory?
One common misconception is that memory works like a video recorder, capturing every detail perfectly. In reality, memory is much more selective. We don't remember every single thing we experience, and sometimes our memories can be distorted. Another misconception is that forgetting is always a bad thing. In fact, forgetting is a normal and necessary part of how memory works. It helps us clear out unnecessary information and focus on what's important.
What can people do to improve their memory?
There are several strategies people can use. One effective technique is called spaced repetition, which involves reviewing information at increasing intervals over time. This helps strengthen the memory trace. Another useful strategy is to make use of mnemonic devices. These are tools that help us organize and remember information. For example, you might use an acronym or a rhyme to remember a list. Additionally, getting enough sleep, staying mentally active, and reducing stress can all have a positive impact on memory function.